I am finally starting the November vlog. Again, we're just admitting at this point that it's probably just gonna be a month-long vlog and hopefully not another hour. I missed the first week. I think today is November 8th or 9th. It's something like that. I don't usually like to start the next week of the vlog until I or the next vlog in general until I edit the last one, and it kind of took me a minute to wrap up and edit the October one, but that's all posted, so now I feel kind of comfortable talking about the things that I'm reading. New setup. Hopefully, ideally, once I get started with once I get back into filming, this is gonna be my filming setup ish. I'm still filming on my phone, not on my camera, but this should be basically the filming setup. And I don't know, the ring light is still just all in my glasses. I don't know how to make that stop. So again, if you have any tips for that, because clearly it's kind of an issue, let me know. I'll fiddle with that too. I just haven't yet because I'm tired and lazy, and honestly I really don't care that much. Y'all can just live with it. Audiobook I'm listening to right now is The Day That Went Missing by Richard Beard. I talked about it a little bit last month, 4 days ago I talked about it. It's a nonfiction book about how his brother died when he was a young kid. He drowned in the ocean. Nicholas died. Richard was there, and it's kind of just his life, you know, his life. And his family kind of just their way of dealing with the grief was kind of to move on and just kind of distance themselves from it and kind of just continue living. And I don't know, it's a little bit boring. It's just one of those books that it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot there for a reader. I can totally understand why Beard wrote this book and why it's really important for him, but it does focus so much just on figuring out what happened that day and every little detail and who remembers what. And it's kind of just I understand for him it's probably therapeutic, but for me it doesn't really do a whole lot. So I kind of forget that I'm reading that book whenever I put it down, and I'm oh, I do have an audiobook going. I should finish that. It's probably gonna be 3 stars. It's probably gonna be one that I just never ever think about again. I don't currently have an ebook going, but I am planning to get back into Transgender History by Susan Stryker. Literally the only reason I stopped reading that was because it was due at the library, and I'm waiting to get a copy back. I'll get back into it and read it and hopefully finish it by the end of the year. There's nothing wrong with it. I didn't stop reading it. I just ran out of time, so I'm waiting for that one, but 100% will get back into that. And then physically, the things I'm reading, or not reading, as the case may be, Ready Player One by Ernest Klein, which I am supposed to be buddy reading with Floor. We started this, I think, on October 1st, and now we're decently into November, so that's mostly my fault. I am behind. I need to catch up to where she is. I need to actually sit down and read this today. It's just I don't know, we're decently in. I'm just finding it difficult to care. I don't know. But it's while I'm reading it, I care. It's just as soon as I put it down, I'm that's kind of whatever. So I do need to actually make progress on this so I can actually finish it. Then again, with the allegedly reading Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is just going the way of The Last Wish, where I just cannot force myself to pick this book up. I read, oh, you can't even see that. I read the very, very beginning. The first, I'm in the third chapter, or the third section of the first chapter. Or, well, they're short stories, so the third chapter of the first story or something like that. And I don't like it. It's sexist. The writing style's better in this one, I will say that. I'm not cringing as much as I was in The Last Wish, but also I'm 15 pages in, so if I was cringing that much already, it'd probably be a problem. I do just need to read this though. I just need to sit down and force myself through it, because that's what I did with The Last Wish, and then I can sit down and force myself through the first novel, which is Blood of Elves or something, and then I will probably not read anymore. Honestly. So yeah, going away. And then the last thing, which, oh, this is all just like a very disappointing update of just like, all these things are mediocre and kind of suck. Which, like, ending with the worst, which I say only the worst because I'm not very far into Sword of Destiny. I'm sure that'll get worse. The Red Lotus by Chris Bajalian. This is just like boring. Like, I am really decently into this book. Like, I have to show this side, the other side's too white. Like, this is all I have left of this book. I'm decently through it. I should be at the point where we're like approaching like the climax and what's gonna happen, and I still just feel like it's the setup section, you know? Like, it just still feels like it's setting up everything, and like, I don't care yet. I'm still waiting for everything to get set up to care, and that's what it feels like, and it's really kind of frustrating. And it's not that bad. Like, it's gonna be 2 stars, but it's one of those 2 stars that, like, I mean, I assume, I haven't finished it yet, but it's probably gonna be one of those 2 stars that, like, I just really don't care about or think about ever again, or like, I finish it and it's just kind of like, well, that existed and now I'm out. And I wouldn't actually have that many feelings on this book, except I posted on Instagram about it, just because I'll link my Instagram down below. Y'all should follow me because I post cute pictures of my cat. She's sitting over there. She was curled up down in the bottom of the bookshelf, which is her new favorite spot, but she just left. I posted this on Instagram just because that's what my Instagram is. I post a picture of my cat laying like beside or on top of whatever book I happen to be reading, and then I just talk about the book, and I talked about this one, and I was complaining just because I don't like it very much, and the author commented on it, you know, like, he's like a well-known author, like decently well-known, like he's written like 20 plus books. This book has over 1,000 reviews on Goodreads, like not ratings, over 1,000 reviews, so like he's clearly fairly well-known. And he commented and was like, I'm very sorry for disappointing you. It's like, okay man, like calm down, no one cares. Like, why do you care about what some random asshole on Instagram thinks? Like, you're 60, you've published 20 books, like, you're clearly making decent money, you're working with HBO shows, like, why do you care? You just look like an asshole. So, now I'm just, like, kind of bitter about this book. I mean, like, he wasn't, like, being hugely rude or anything like that. It was just one of those things, it's like, it's so unnecessary. Like, don't interact with negative reviews. Like, I didn't tag you, mate. Like, I don't want to interact with you, and I don't know. It just makes me, like, unnecessarily bitter about this book, because I'm not just bitter about, like, this, but about him as a person, whereas before I had literally no thoughts on him as a person, other than I really love this book, so I don't know. There's that. At this point, I'm kind of just trying to, like, prioritize this and just get through it so it's done, because I just don't care. Like, it's just an adult contemporary crime sort of thing about this woman whose boyfriend of 6 months disappeared in Vietnam, and they're, like, trying to figure out what happened to him, and it's, like, kind of, like, dramatic, but also it's, like, yo, like, you knew him for 6 months. Like, I'm not that invested in your relationship. Like, why were you that invested in your relationship, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, it's not, like, terrible. It's just, I'm bitter at him now. Apart from that, the only thing I've really been thinking about is kind of just, like, end of year stuff, because that is coming up, and I was, like, kind of just thinking in general about, like, what my end of the year stuff was gonna be. And I've mentioned this before in the vlogs, like every couple of months I think about this. I haven't had a 5-star read yet this year. I mean, I've had like rereads that were 5 stars, but not like a new to me 5-star read, and that's a little bit like disappointing. Like, I never have many, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here like, wow, it's shocking that I haven't had. I usually only have like 3 to 5 5-star reads each year, so it's like not very many, but I usually have at least a couple, or, you know, like minimum one. I have one thing that I've read and just discovered that I absolutely adore, and this year I haven't had any, and it's kind of one of those things that, like, it doesn't really matter, you know, in the scheme of things. It just kind of makes me like, you know, like there have been plenty of like 4 stars that I really enjoyed that were like really worthwhile, but there's been nothing that's been like 5 stars, amazing, this is a new favorite. I haven't found any new favorites this year, and I keep thinking about just like intentionally going through my shelves and reading all the books that like potentially could be favorites. Like, Because I mean, like, I'm okay with reading books that, like, I know that's not going to be 5 stars. I know that's going to be, like, a 3-star read, probably. You know, like, you can always be surprised. But it's like, I can go in expecting that it's going to be a 3-star read and still find it worthwhile and still find it, like, interesting and worth reading, even if it's, like, only 3 stars. But there are a few books on my shelves that I look at and I'm like, this could realistically, like, maybe be a 5-star read, you know, like, going in, like, that's a possibility. Long Bright River by Liz Moore is one of them, because I read The Unseen World and that's still one of my favorite books of all time. Also, Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour, because I read We Are Okay, and that's also one of my absolute favorites. And there are just, like, a couple of things on my shelves that I really look at and think I could potentially adore this book. Like, even more than, like, I'm gonna like it, probably. It's like, this genuinely vibes me as, like, a favorite. But it's like, I don't want to, like, sit down and read those all this month and just, like, or not this month, but, like, the next 2 months, you know, by the end of the year, and, like, force myself through them and just, like, in a desperate attempt to get, like, a 5-star read, you know, because I feel like that's, like, too much pressure, and that if I was doing that, it would kind of just feel like I was trying to force myself to get that 5-star read, that, like, anything less than 5 stars would be, like, a disappointment, and I would just enjoy the reading experiences less because I was doing that. But also, like, it'd be nice to have a 5-star read, because it does feel like just, like, kind of a disappointing year, and part of it's my fault, just because, like, the year was stressful, so, like, for a good few months there, I was kind of looking for, like, mediocre reads. Like, not mediocre, but, like, books that were going to be, like, good or entertaining for the moment, but, like, I wasn't looking for something with, like, a lot of emotional involvement. I was just kind of looking to, like, enjoy something and just kind of, like, get through it. And I spent several months just reading those, and, like, I do think that kind of changed it a little, and reading, I don't know that I'll say I'm reading less this year, but, like, definitely more audiobooks, which are more rereads, and especially I don't gravitate towards books that I think will be favorites on audiobooks. I don't know. It doesn't, like, really matter, you know, because, like, I read what I read regardless, and, like, I have read a lot of things that I've enjoyed this year, but it is just, like, something that I'm thinking about, you know, like, there is just, like, that little bit of, like, like, this is a questionable aspect of this year, and, like, I don't know what I would do, like, because I wouldn't have favorites list for the year, because normally my favorites are everything that I give 5 stars, and I do, like, an honorable mentions list. So, like, do I just not do an honorable mentions this year and make it all my favorites, even if, like, they aren't, like, real favorites? Or do I skip the favorites and just do an honorable mentions, because that seems depressing. I don't know. It is just like something I'm thinking about, and something that, like, I don't know, it's annoying to me. But also, like, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on, like, these books that I might enjoy and just stress myself out about them so I don't enjoy them. So, like, I don't know. It is what it is, honestly, at this point. But I am just, that is something that's been on my mind a lot as we get closer and closer to the end of the year. So I had a few productive reading days. I finished The Red Lotus by Chris Bajalian. My thoughts did not change on that. 2 stars, not a fan. It wasn't, like, the worst thing I've ever read, and I don't know, I might have been more generous if he just didn't seem like kind of a crabby person, but I was kind of planning on giving that book 2 stars before he interacted with me at all. But it wasn't, like, terrible. It was just kind of one of those things where, like, the whole book felt like it was setting up the story, and it felt like I was never getting to the point where I was invested in it. But I'm done with that, so that's good. There was just, like, a random global pandemic in that, and it was just like, why? This is not the year that I want to be reading that. So that's done, thank God. And I finished The Day That Went Missing by Richard Beard. That was a thing that exists. It was 3 stars. Like, there was nothing wrong with it, I just didn't care about anything in it. So whatever, that's done. And then I finished another audiobook because I had my overnight, and that was All You Can Ever Know by Nicole Chung, which is a nonfiction book about a woman in a transracial adoption. She was born to Korean immigrants in America and then adopted by a white family, and it's pretty much about her feelings towards that, and her tracking down her birth family. And it's interesting. I don't know. I gave it 3 stars. I was torn between 3 and 4 for a while, but then I kind of like, once I forgot like most of it, 2 days later, I was like, that was probably a 3-star. Like, it was fine. It was definitely better than The Day That Went Missing, and there were things I really enjoyed about it, but it was just kind of like, I don't know, I was always looking for a little bit more. Like, it felt a little bit bare bones. Like, I had so many questions that she didn't answer, and not like closure questions, but it's just like, what's your relationship with your adoptive parents through this process of searching for your birth parents? Because, like, her adoptive parents weren't even, like, in the last half of the book, almost. Like, she mentioned them, like, once or twice, but that was pretty much it. And I was just like, this seems relevant. And it just seemed like she was trying not to talk about certain things that were, like, maybe too personal, or maybe the people didn't want her to talk about them. But, like, I don't know. When you're reading a memoir, it felt like there was just more that I really needed from that book. But that's done. So those 3 are all finished, and now I have like 15 books on my Goodreads that I haven't updated yet. Like 4 or 5 of those I'm probably currently reading, but there's like a solid 10 that like I just need to go through and update. So right now I'm trying to still read the Witcher book, Sword of Destiny. That's I never want to pick it up. Like, that's the real problem. It's not that like it's slow to get through, it's just that I can never force myself to pick it up. And I got Transgender History by Susan Stryker back from the library, so I really do need to focus on that. Like, I stopped reading physical books in my car to work so that like I can only read that or Twitter, and there's not that much Twitter to read on a 30-minute lunch break. So like I do really want to like get through that. It's just it is like very slow, it's kind of dry, it's very like academic written. It's just that style of like, this vaguely reads like a history textbook, which isn't bad. It's just I don't really read those very much, and it's kind of a struggle, and it's kind of a little bit bland, and it also feels kind of like an overview of everything. Like, it's not going super in depth on like any of these issues, and I'm like, I would like you to spend like 50 pages talking about this person, and she spends like 2 to 3 and it just kind of feels like a summary almost, which I mean, like, she's covering like 100 years of history, so that makes sense. And then I'm going to read Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour as my physical book next, which I don't have with me because I'm not bringing books to work until I finish Transgender History. But I went to my shelf that has all the books that I was gifted on it from booktubers, and I kind of pulled one at random in the dark, but also I was kind of trying to pull Everything Leads to You, so I'm quite pleased that was the one that I grabbed. But I don't know, I think it's like fluffy YA, like, and it's Nina LaCour, and she writes some like serious things and like kind of like heavier topics. Like, she writes about grief, she writes about suicide, she writes about depression. So I am interested in, because I have heard that it's much lighter than some of her other books, which like is kind of why I haven't read it yet, because I don't always do super well with like light and fluffy YA reads. They're just like, they usually wind up being like 3 stars if they're good, and like less if they're not. But it is Nina LaCour, and I do love her so much, so I'm hoping that one will work for me. I'm basically at the point where lighting doesn't matter. I was gonna try to vlog on my way home from work this morning, because last night was my overnight, and then my phone had 1%, so that didn't happen. Basically, last night I needed to listen to an audiobook for work, and I finished the last one, which was the one about adoption, All You Can Ever Know. So I downloaded this random book called Escape from Camp 14 by Blaine Harden. It's a nonfiction book by a journalist about a man who escaped from one of the concentration camps in North Korea, for political prisoners. He was actually born there to parents who were political prisoners and like literally raised in this labor camp, and then he escaped when he was like 20 and lived in China for a while, and then wound up in South Korea and then the US, and it was kind of just about him and his life, which is interesting because I do find North Korea fascinating in that way, that it's such just like, how do we let this place exist? Like, how is there a literal dystopia in our current world that we all just kind of accept? Like, fascinating, not in like a sense of like, I find North Korea really interesting and fun, but like in a really just like, we let this happen, you know, like we're just sitting by while this happens, while these people are being murdered. I I don't know. North Korea is one of those places it's hard to wrap your mind around. And so I do enjoy reading nonfiction about it. And this one was good. I give it 4 stars. I do think it was missing a little something for me, and I think that's because I've been reading a lot of memoirs just as audiobooks, and I do in general. And I think with this book, I was kind of going into it with the expectation of like a memoir kind of vibe. And it's written by a journalist. Like, it's not trying to be a memoir, you know? Like, it's very specifically about this man's life, and the journalist spent a lot of time interviewing him, but it is a journalistic book. It's a little bit... It does kind of feel like several articles kind of stuck together, like a series of articles that a journalist has done over the course of, like, years, you know? On, like, this one subject. And there were points of it where it was definitely, like... he was using the man to like talk more about North Korea, because he did Blaine Harden, yes, he did talk about how he was interested in I forget what was the term he used, in like political dictatorships that were falling apart, or like countries that were like crumbling, because he talked about like going places in Africa or the Middle East to like do research. This was at like the beginning of the book, and like I listened to this thing literally all night and finished it. It was real short. I don't know. I feel like for all I enjoyed it and I found it really interesting, and I would recommend it if you're interested in the subject. I think it's a unique perspective. Just because he doesn't have what I think would be considered the typical North Korean perspective, because he was raised in the camp. He wasn't raised to be like a North Korean citizen. He was literally raised for labor. So, like, he doesn't have, like, sort of the brainwashing on Kim Jong-un, or whichever one was in charge at the time, because this was a while ago, so I don't remember which one. Like, he doesn't have the brainwashing of, like, the great leader, like, North Korea is the greatest country ever. Like, he just, like, they never bothered, like, teaching him any of that, because he just wasn't, like, a person to them. And I do think it's interesting and worthwhile, but I always felt like there was something missing, and it was very short. I did listen to the audiobook. It was, like, 6 hours, less than 6 hours long, maybe. I looked at the book on Goodreads, and it says it's, like, 205 pages, and it's just, like, very short, and it feels short, and it kind of just got to a point at the end where it was just, like, okay, that's it. Here's a nice little epilogue for y'all, and I was like, okay, I guess it's done now, you know? It just, and to an extent, I get that, because, like, this dude is still alive, you know? Like, his story kind of does just, like, stop here for the time being, because, like, he's still living it. And I'm not blaming it on that. It's just, like, I don't know, even throughout the book, like, I never felt connected to the story in a way that I would really want to. Like, I was interested by it, but I didn't feel, like, connected with it. And I don't know, it always just felt like there was just something missing, and like some element that like I would really want to love it, and I just like didn't quite love it, you know? Like 4 stars. I think it was great. I think it's really worthwhile. I don't know, like I would recommend it. I don't know, there was something there that just like kind of missed the mark a little bit for me. Just like that touch of like, well, it was 4 stars, it was a really good 4 stars, but like I'm not sitting here like, oh, this was like an amazing book that like touched me so deeply, you know? So I don't know, just wanted to update on that. I haven't really done anything else. I'm feeling good on BookTube today, which is weird, because like I wasn't feeling good on BookTube yesterday, the day before. I don't know, I got some like exhausting comments that like, oh, just, well, because I was responding to like my comments that I hadn't responded to in the last like 6-8 weeks, and some of them were just like exhausting. It's like, I don't want to deal with these people, like none of you guys, you know? Like, I love you guys, just like randoms, and not like trolls, you know? Just like tiresome individuals that I don't feel like dealing with, who think they're like entitled to my time. And it's just like, oh, I want to deal with that. And then I woke up today. Well, I didn't wake up today, I've been awake all day. I worked last night. I haven't gone to bed yet. Oh, I don't know. I was just like, I'm vibing BookTube right now, which is weird, because like I haven't in a minute, and it's nice to feel like I want to do BookTube. So I'm trying to edit a video, and it's just like hard because it's an old video, and whenever it's an old video, I'm always just like so irritated by myself. But I don't know. It does feel nice to like feel good on BookTube again, and like I don't know. I feel like the last like week especially, I've been less depressed, kind of, than I have been the last, like, 6 months. You know, just, like, nothing has changed. It's just that, like, my mood feels, like, slightly lifted. Like, I just don't feel as bad as I have been feeling, which is nice. And I feel like I'm capable of doing things. Like, regardless of whether I do them or not, I feel like I'm capable of it, which is at least some improvement. And I don't know. It does feel kind of good to just, like, feel okay for a moment. Or just, like okay is a possibility at the very least. So, like, I don't know. Today's kind of... It's weird because I worked all last night, and I didn't like working, and, like, it sucks to go in and work an overnight, and then I have to go in tomorrow morning at 5, and it's, like, to alternate between, like, the overnight and then the 5 a.m. is annoying, but, like, I'm in a good mood anyway, and I don't know. But, yeah, I'm just gonna go back to trying to do booktube things before the motivation leaves me, because while I have it, I'm gonna use it. I do not even remember the last time I updated this vlog. It's probably been over a week, and it's just like, I don't have anything to say, and I feel bad for that, because, like, I want to come on here and be like, oh, I'm reading this thing and having this thought about it, and, like, doing these things in my life, or, like, just have anything to show you guys, but, like, I just worked 8 days in a row. Like, just 8 straight days of, you know, 8.5 to 10.5 hour shifts, and I am on my feet the entire time, and I have to wake up at, you know, 3 a.m. for one of those shifts, and one of them was at midnight, and it's just, oh, I'm so tired. So I haven't done anything, you know, like, I haven't read anything new. I think in my last update I said I got Nina LaCour's Everything Leads to You off my shelf and I was gonna start reading that. I literally haven't started it yet, and not because I'm reading anything else, I just have not had the time or the energy, and it's like, I'll come home from work and have, like, 4 hours of free time, and that includes, you know, making myself food and cleaning myself and doing laundry and everything, and, like, keeping up with just basic life. So the only thing I am reading is I'm still working on Transgender History by Susan Stryker, and I don't have any new thoughts on that, although I will say that is getting better, because it is just, like, the first chapter of the book was just terms, which is really boring, and it was all... Why does it be like that when I'm trying to vlog? The first chapter was all terminology. Like, it was literally just, here are terms, here are their definitions. That was the entire first chapter, which I feel like was, like, a solid, like, fifth of the book, maybe. And I honestly should have just skipped that, because all that information, none of it was new to me, you know? It was kind of like, here's the definition of genderqueer, here's the definition of transgender, here's the like, all these, like, basic LGBT plus terms. And I think that's very useful if you're going in not knowing them, but, like, when you've just been exposed to them for quite a while, it's like, you don't need those basic definitions. And I don't know. So that was a little bit rough. And then just, like, getting into some of the history aspects was a little bit harder, because it is written more like a history textbook, and I'm very much used to reading, like, narrative books. Like, even the nonfiction I read is largely narrative based, and this isn't, you know? Like, it's just, it's telling the history, and it starts, I forget when it started, like the 40s maybe? And it's mostly focused on America. It's very America-centric, and she, like, discusses that in the beginning. But she kind of just, like, goes through, like, each decade is its own chapter, and she talks about, like, the major transgender things that happened in that decade. And, you know, early on there wasn't a lot. Like, one of the things that is interesting is that, you know, in the beginning she was talking about, like, individuals. You know, she would be like, this doctor was doing this thing, this person medically transitioned, this person, you know, like, etc., like, all the people who were doing things. And now, as she got into, like, I'm in, like, not really present day, because it's a history book, but, like, you know, I'm in the 21st century, but even in the 90s, she kind of stopped talking about individuals so much and started talking about movements, you know, like, this is what this movement is doing, that's what this group is doing, and it really is, it's one of those things that just illustrates how far we've come, you know, and I mean, there's still a long way to go, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, like, there isn't, but, like, it really was one of those things where it's just like, wow, like, in this decade she talked about, like, 6 people, and in this decade, like, 30 years later, she's talking about, like, movements that are comprised of thousands of people, and I don't know, it's really nice. It is also interesting now. I'm retaining a lot more now, because a lot of the stuff, not all of it, but like there's quite a bit of it that like I already know or have like at least the context for. And I feel like when you have the context for history as you're learning it, even when the information is new, having the context helps you understand it and retain it better. Whereas I don't necessarily think I retained a lot of like the early years stuff she was talking about. Like definitely like some of it. I'm not saying like it was in and out, but like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like 2/3 of the way done with that, so I'm not even like almost done. I mean, like I'm getting close to the end. I'm reading it on my phone, so I'm on whatever the pages translate to in physical pages, I have no idea. But on my phone, I'm on 400 out of like, or 400 and something out of like 600. So I still got a bit to go, and I'm reading it just like very slowly. Just like on my lunch break at work. That's been like the only time I've had energy to read, and I don't know. I do recommend this book though. Like it's got some flaws, and like some of the things she says I don't necessarily agree with. She's definitely like, this book was originally written a while ago. I think in the, I don't know. I forget when it was written, like 10 years ago originally or something like that. And she updated it. But she definitely has a point of view of the older generation, which like she points out a few times in the book, which is interesting because like she does talk about the fact that what she thinks and what she experienced, or not like her specifically because it is history, but like she talks about the different generations and how like people who are coming of age today or recently, you know, see certain slurs in different ways, whereas, you know, and this is just like an example, you know, because she talks about it in other contexts too, but like how a specific slur, like the younger generation might see that like, oh, that's a slur, like don't, if you use that word you're wrong for using it, whereas like the older generation was like, oh, like we kind of use this as like a kind of friendly thing like within the community, you know. And it's just different things, and I don't know, some of the ways she talks about certain things, like she's discussed non-binary a little bit, and I always get like a weird vibe when she discusses it. Like I don't know, like I don't want to put words in her mouth, you know, like I don't know what she believes in. She hasn't really talked about non-binary people much within the book, just because like that's not the focus, like the same way she hasn't talked about like being gay very much in the book, so like that's just not the focus. Like it comes up because it can be related to transgender people, but like, and transgender history, but like, yeah, I don't know, just the way she discusses non-binary, being non-binary, I don't know how to like describe it, but it gives me a weird vibe. That's it. And I do think the book is very worthwhile, very interesting, like very America-centric, so if you're not like interested in specifically like American stuff, probably not for you, but like I am enjoying it. I'm very glad I picked it up. She discussed Janet Mock, and I was like, Janet Mock? Is that her name? I can't remember if Janet was her first name. I don't know. It's been a long year, guys. The book I read, Redefining Realness, I think her name was Janet Mock. Now I'm just mad that I'm second guessing myself. Anyway, she discussed her in her book, and like just kind of her as a person a little bit, and I was like, I read that book. That was a really good book, actually. I still think about that book. That was a good book. Yeah, so read that. Read this one too, I guess. Like if you're interested in just like the context of how like transgender people have started like organizing, I guess, like that's kind of what it is. It's just like how they've started getting rights. I don't know. I'm tired. It's been a very long week. But it is interesting, and I do feel like I'm gaining a lot from it. And it's definitely making me crave reading something with a narrative, because like this just isn't what I normally pick up. But like it's very like worthwhile, and I'm very glad I'm reading it, even if it's taking me a long time, because like it's hard to sit down and read too much of it, because she does like kind of talk things briefly, you know? Like it's not like she spends like 100 pages discussing this one movement. It's like, okay, here's this one person, they led this group. Here's 3 pages on that. Now here's another thing that's not entirely unrelated, but like very tangentially related. 3 pages on that. And it's just like, it goes on, and it's like, it's like if I read too much at one time, it just kind of completely disappears from my head. So like it is definitely a slower reading thing. And I'm just tired, and I'm just like, I want to read Everything Leads to You, but then it's just like I go to bed at like 6:45 p.m. some nights because I'm just like done. So yeah, all my updates on here are like 10 minutes long, and I'm just sorry. I don't know, this is gonna be another hour-long vlog. I need to like stop myself at some point, but like the good thing is November is almost over, so like I haven't had that many updates for November. I feel like November's been my worst vlogging month. Just like I don't have anything to say. Like I haven't been reading. Like it's hard. Like I'll be like, I should update the vlog right now, and I'll be like, what do I say in the vlog? Do I just talk about transgender history the way I've been doing for the last like 2 clips? Like do I just continue to discuss this book to death when like I think it's a good book and it's worthwhile, but also I don't have that many thoughts on it. I don't know. Yeah, that's it. I'm so tired. I need to like sleep for a month and just like not go in, but I actually work. I'm technically off for a day, but I go in tomorrow at midnight. Not like tonight, but like I technically have tomorrow off, and then I go in at midnight. So like tomorrow's Thanksgiving too, so yay. Yay. I actually have an update for y'all today. Last night was my overnight, so I started a new audiobook, which I'm now more than halfway done with, because like again, 6 hours of listening straight. I was listening to Girl in the Dark by Anna Lindsay. I basically, what I do and how I pick these audiobooks, I struggle with like fiction and stuff, so I mostly listen to memoirs. So I just literally look up memoirs on my library's app and then just kind of add to my list anything that sounds like vaguely interesting, and then when I'm ready for a new one, I just take whichever ones are available at the moment, so that like every week I don't need to like be looking for something new. So this was the only one that was available right now, and it's kind of been on my list for a while, and it was always just like, it didn't sound that good, but I was like kind of intrigued because it's about a woman who has sensitivity to light, and like in an extreme sense. So I'm listening to that, and I don't love it. I'm thinking it's probably going to be 2 stars for 2 main reasons. The first is that it's so painfully overwritten. Like I've rarely read something that felt this overwritten, you know? Like sometimes authors are like unnecessarily flowery, and it's like, okay, you don't need to spend like that long describing a tree. Like it's a tree, we get it. Like give us a good description and then move on. Like don't spend three or 4 sentences on this. It's unnecessary. This book is just like, she will literally sit there and use 6 adjectives, 4 metaphors, and a freaking simile to describe her curtains, and I'm like, it's fine. Like, just tell us they're thick and black and heavy. Like, I don't care. And it's everything. It's everything she talks about. It's her relationship with her boyfriend. It's her curtains. It's the roses that she looks at. It's the hair that falls out of her head. Like, it's everything. And it's so painful to read and, I mean, listen to. I don't like it. But beyond that, usually in memoirs, I kind of go into it with the assumption that it's true. Like, regardless of whether or not I actually, like, think it's true, I make an active choice to take memoirs at face value, because it's usually, it's a person's personal story, and it doesn't really impact me in any way if it's like 100% true or not, you know, because like I don't necessarily buy everything David Sedaris says, but like he's a good storyteller, so I like decide to accept it at face value, and this is like an active choice. This is something that like I know I'm doing consciously. And so when I'm reading a memoir and I'm feeling like, I'm not really sure I believe this. It's like, this is not like a normal feeling for me, because it means there's something in there that actively feels wrong. And I don't know. And I'm not saying I don't think it's true. It's like not that strong of a feeling. It's just that as I'm reading it, it's like, there are some things here that don't really add up. And there could be explanations for those, you know, like, I'm not saying there aren't. Like, I don't know her life, and she really doesn't talk about anything about her life apart from anything that's specifically related to her light sensitivity. Like, that's really, like, the only thing in this book. If it's not directly related to that, it's not a part of the book. And, like, there's just a lot of things. They're just, like, she doesn't go to the doctor. And it's, like, if you're feeling this extreme, like, you literally can't leave your house, like, even at night. Like, she doesn't leave her house for months or years or whatever. Like, she lives in complete darkness. There are no lights in her house. All the windows are completely covered all of the time. Like, sometimes there's, like, some dim light in the kitchen, and she can, like, very briefly go in there for a few minutes to get food, and it's, like, and then she, like, doesn't go to the doctor. Or, like, try to. Or, like, maybe she does and she just doesn't write about it, you know? But it's, like, one of those things that I just think about when I'm reading it, and it's just, like, that seems odd. Like, that seems like something's off there, you know? And it's not just that, you know? There are, like, a dozen other things like that, at least, that are all, like, little things and could be, like, explained away. But because there are so many, it just leaves me feeling like I'm not sure how much I do believe this. And I don't know. Like, it's not that I don't believe it either. Like, it's kind of a neutral, like, I'm not sure. But also, like, it's a memoir, and usually I just disregard any of those feelings, and I just can't here, which bothers me. And it makes it a much less enjoyable reading experience for me. But I don't know. I also just find her kind of irritating. And I think that's mostly just, like, due to her writing style, because I really don't like her writing style. But I don't know. I should probably finish that sometime within the week. I'm not really going to prioritize it because it seems like kind of a waste of time at this point. And honestly, if something more interesting pops up in my audiobooks, I might just DNF it because, like, I don't care. Like, I'm at the point in the book where, like, her light sensitivity is, like, magically going away for no reason, which is weird. I mean, like, not completely, but it's, like, she was just, like, in her house for what seemed like years. And then, like, now all of a sudden she can just, like, go outside some. And, like, there's no explanation. She doesn't go to the doctor, and she's like, I don't need to go to the doctor to get labeled. And it's like, well, okay, like, you're still experiencing a lot of, like, negative side effects. So, like, I don't think it's about getting labeled. I think it's about, like, treatments. But I don't know. Like I said, like, I don't think she's lying, you know? It's not that I, like, feel one way or the other. It's just that I'm unsure, and that makes it unpleasant. And I'm not really a fan of this one. It's also under a pseudonym, which is, like, it's always a little weird to me when authors write under pseudonyms for stuff that's not, like, I don't know the word, like, controversial or something, or it's not, like, there's a reason they're hiding their identity. I don't know, it just, I mean, like, I don't judge because, like, you know, that's what I would prefer, honestly, in that situation. But it's just, like, always a little bit odd when someone's, like, hiding their identity for something that really doesn't matter. But I don't know. I would like to read Everything Leads to You and finish Transgender History, but the month is ending quickly. I think today's, like, the 28th or something. So neither of those will probably happen. I don't even know what I'm supposed to be rereading this month. So, doing great with that. Maybe I can check, and maybe it's, like, something short that I can, like, read very quickly today and tomorrow, because I'm off for the rest of today and tomorrow, which means I actually get to, like, rest and sleep and do things, which is wonderful. But yeah, I wanted to update on that book because I did have thoughts on it, and I was like, I should add thoughts to this vlog instead of just me talking about transgender history every other clip. It is December 2nd, so definitely time to finish up the November vlog. I do have actual reading updates. It's right after my overnight, which I feel like is when I always update the vlog, mostly just because that's when I make progress, because I get through a lot of audiobook. But I do have other things to update this time, for once. I finished Transgender History by Susan Stryker, finally. That took me a very long time to get through, but it was also very worthwhile. I did quite enjoy that book, and I would recommend it if you're looking for, like, an introductory history of trans people in America. Like, she does touch on, like, some things that are going on in other countries, but it's, like, intentionally very America-centric. Like, that's what it's supposed to be about. Definitely more of a history book than I would ordinarily pick up, because I'm much more of a narrative reader, but really interesting, really worthwhile. I'm glad that I picked it up and read it, because I do think I gained a lot from having read it. And I didn't actually think I was that close to the ending, because it's like, I mean, it's a history book, so like the last 100 pages, you know, were all just like further reading and all the sources that she used and just everything. So it kind of just ended, and I was like, oh, I thought I still had like 3 more weeks of reading on this. But I am gonna like screenshot the further reading just to have as a reference, because I do think that might be useful at some point. I think they're largely academic texts, so like I might not delve too far into that, but I'd like to have it just so like I can look up some of those books and see if they might be interesting. So because I finished that, I decided to start another ebook, and I was listening. I was watching Abby from Autumn of Pelinor's channel, and I watched like 5 of her videos back to back, so I don't actually remember what video this book came from, but she was recommending 84K by Claire North, which is a dystopian about capitalism continues the way it's going and just continues to get worse. So basically one of the main premises of the book is that like everything is run by, you know, the company, and there's like one big company that basically runs everything, and like they run the government, they run literally everything, and like human rights have been abolished and all of that. And the thing the book focuses on most is that crimes are now money based, so that like instead of like going to prison or something for a crime, it becomes like a money thing, you know, like, oh, if you like punch this person in the face, you know, that's assault. You're not going to get a month in prison for assault. It's gonna cost you like $3,000 or something. And like all the crimes are judged like that, you know, like even like up to murder, you know, and it depends on who the person is, you know, like someone who makes a lot of money, who works for the company, their life is worth a lot more than someone who doesn't, who just kind of like exists or is a poor person. And like it delves into a lot of that. It's very strange so far, like not the story itself, but just like the writing style, and not in a bad way necessarily. I'm not sure how much I like it yet. I'm like a fourth of the way through the book, and it is definitely very interesting, but it's just like a very strange writing style. It's almost like, oh, I don't know how to describe it in a good way. Like when you're thinking something and you don't bother thinking the full thought because like you're the one thinking it, so you can like stop halfway through and you still know where you're going. It's kind of like that almost. And it's very like understandable. It's not like I'm confused at any point or I don't know what they're talking about. It's just like, it is strange because they'll just like stop and move on to something else, and it's like, it feels like thinking almost. It's very strange. I don't think it's poorly done, but I'm not sure how much I like it. So that'll be interesting. And on my overnight last night, the audiobooks I was listening to, I finally finished Girl in the Dark by whatever her name is. I don't really care. It was a fake name anyway, so why does it matter? My thoughts haven't changed on that, and I really like that book. 2 stars. And then I started listening to Stray by Stephanie Danler, I think. It's a memoir. It was kind of pitched as like her dealing with how drug addiction shattered her family life as a child and kind of how she copes from that. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, sounds like an interesting premise, but I really dislike it. Like, to the degree that I just stopped listening to it at one point last night, and I was like, maybe we're not gonna continue this book. Like, and it's not that there was like anything offensive in it or anything like that. It was just like, it reminded me of Wild by Cheryl Strayed, in that, not in like subject matter so much, although it was very like, let me better myself and like deal with the traumas I've experienced. So like similar in that way, but in subject matter, like Cheryl Strayed was off like hiking I forget what the trail is called. I live on the East Coast, so I know the Appalachian Trail. I forget what the one on the West Coast is called, but she was hiking that whole trail, and it was just like about her self-discovery hiking the trail. And this one is just like about her life. It's just that like they're similar in the sense that I find their personalities both very annoying, and I just, and not even in a you seem like a terrible person kind of way, just in a you annoy me specifically so much. And like I couldn't keep listening to her. And it's got to the point where, like, I listened to this book for at least 3 hours, like, maybe longer. I got, like, I got decently into it, like, not halfway, but, like, kind of close to halfway. And I still couldn't tell you what the point of this memoir was. Like, her father's the one who had a drug addiction, and she'd, like, barely mentioned him until, like, right when I was stopping the book, she started, like, talking about her father a little bit. I was like, this is not for me. I don't know who would like this book, but, you know, then again, I didn't know who would like Wild either, so that book is wildly popular. I don't know, I found her so irritating, and it's really just, like, she didn't do anything that I would consider, like, wrong in the book. I mean, like, she talks a lot about, like, the bad things she's done, but it's not like she's being offensive or anything. She's just talking about, like, oh, like, I was a terrible person in relationships, like, here's like my mindset and like what it was like. And it's like, I don't have a problem reading about people who cheat on their significant others, you know, like, that's not why I didn't like reading it. I just found her irritating. So I'm DNFing that because I don't care. I can't bring myself to care in the slightest. Like, I was hours in and I was just like, I still don't even remotely give a crap about what's going on or what's going to happen in her life. So that was fun. I need to, like, look more into audiobooks, I think, since the last 2 have been so rough, and I've had a couple of other rough ones. It's hard. I'm, like, running through memoirs pretty quickly, so I need to work on that. I would like to not just hate what I'm listening to. I keep thinking about Janet Mock's book, Redefining Realness, and it was so good, and it was just, like, so enjoyable to listen to that at work, and it, like, gave my brain something to do, and, like, everything she said was so interesting, and just, like, I want something like that. But this is the end of November. I don't really have anything else to read. I'm still allegedly reading The Witcher, which I haven't looked at in ages, and I still plan to read Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour, which I have not picked up yet, so, those are both things that need to happen in December. I also didn't really talk about Nanowrimo much on here at all, ever. Largely because I wrote 1 page of that, and then I was just never had the time or energy or what have you to continue. Most of, like, the free time and energy I have go towards booktube, either watching or creating or editing or whatever. So, I would like to continue the story I'm writing. I say I'm writing, like, I wrote 1 page, literally. I would like to continue that, maybe in December, maybe in the future, who knows. Write it very, very slowly, just because I do like that story. In theory, you know, it exists in 1 page right now. But yes, this has been November. I would say that I hope December is going to be an improvement, but honestly, at this point, I'm just gonna accept whatever's coming. It's the holiday season. Work has been rough. I just got off, like, an 11+ hour shift and I am tired. So I'm gonna go and make food and kind of just collapse on the floor for a little while. As always, thank y'all so much for watching. Thank you especially if you made it this far, because I'm assuming this is gonna be an hour long or something approaching an hour, just based on recent history of vlogging. But thank you so much, and I will see y'all again soon.